My daughter Simone was 18 years old when her mother tore the letter. I was not there when it happened. I was at work. I worked evenings at a grocery store in Detroit, the same store I had worked at for 11 years, stocking shelves and managing the overnight inventory with the particular invisible efficiency of someone whose contribution is essential and whose presence is rarely acknowledged. Simone called me from outside the house, not crying. I want to say that clearly because the not crying mattered. It communicated something about who Simone was and who she was going to be, that the crying would not have communicated. She called me from outside the house on a Tuesday evening in March, and her voice was flat in the particular way that voices go flat when something large has happened, and the processing of it has not yet found the channel that produces tears. "Grandma," she said. She called me Grandma because Simone had lived with me for 3 years before she went back to her mother's house, and the name had settled in that time, and neither of us had changed it. Grandma. Mama tore the letter. I knew which letter. I had been there when Simone received it, standing at the mailbox on a Saturday morning in February, opening the envelope with the MIT return address, with the careful deliberateness of someone who has been waiting for something and is trying to manage her anticipation in case the waiting produces the wrong answer. It had produced the right answer. We had stood at the mailbox together, Simone and I had held her while she cried the good kind of crying, the kind that means something has arrived that was worth waiting for. And I had told her that her grandfather Walter would have been so proud, and that I was so proud, and that everything she had worked for had produced exactly what hard work produces, when the person doing the work is as extraordinary as the person in front of me. That was in February. In March, her mother Patricia found the letter and tore it, not accidentally, not in a moment of careless handling. She tore it with the deliberate intention of someone who has decided that what the letter represents is something she is not willing to allow in her house. Simone called me from outside the house on a Tuesday evening. "Grandma, Mama tore the letter." I finished my shift. I drove to Patricia's house. And I told my daughter something that I had been deciding, in the weeks since the letter arrived, that the moment required me to say. "Simone," I said, "you are going to MIT. I don't care what your mother tore. The letter is paper. The acceptance is real. And you are going." She looked at me. "How?" she asked. I said, "Let me make some calls." And that was the beginning. Before I tell you how Simone got to MIT and what happened 7 years later when her cousin Maya needed help, I need to ask you something. If someone destroyed the most important document of your child's life, deliberately, in front of them, because their success made that person feel something they didn't know how to handle, what would you do? Would you confront them immediately? Call the school? Give up because the letter was gone? Or would you finish your shift, drive to the house, and tell your grandchild that a letter is paper, and the acceptance is real and she is going? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story is already finding something in you, if you have ever been the child whose success made someone close to you uncomfortable, or the parent who watched that happen and refused to let it be the end of the story, please like this video and subscribe to Still Waters. New stories arrive here regularly, and every one of them runs deeper than you expect. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it there? Let me take you back to the beginning, because the torn letter is not where this story starts. It starts much earlier than that. It starts with a girl in Detroit who was always going to be extraordinary, and a mother who decided, for reasons I have spent 25 years trying to understand, that extraordinary was something to be afraid of. My name is Dorothy Mae Washington. I am 67 years old, and I have one daughter, Patricia Louise, born in 1966 in Detroit, Michigan, the year that everything in Detroit felt, for a brief and specific moment, like it might be possible. Patricia was a beautiful child, bright, with the particular energy of someone whose mind moves faster than the situations available to her, and who expresses that surplus energy through motion and sound, and the particular demand for attention that very bright children make when they understand, without words, that the world is not yet organized around them. She was also, from very early, competitive, not in the healthy way of someone who is challenged by others' achievements to produce greater achievements of their own. in the particular way of someone who experiences others' achievements as a subtraction from their own, as if the world contains a fixed amount of success, and every piece that goes to someone else is a piece that cannot go to them. I did not understand this about Patricia when she was young. I understood it later, too late, in some ways, to fully address it. But eventually, and completely, I understood it. Patricia's father, my husband Walter, died when she was 19. The death reorganized our family of 3 into a family of 2. And the reorganization produced in Patricia something that I have spent the years since trying to name accurately. I think it produced fear. Not the visible kind. Patricia was not a frightened woman in any observable sense. She was loud and certain and opinionated in ways that communicated the opposite of fear. But underneath that loudness, in the particular way that fear hides beneath its opposite in people who have learned that showing fear produces disadvantage, I think Walter's death frightened her in a way she never resolved. And unresolved fear, in people for whom vulnerability is not an option, becomes other things. Patricia was 22 when she had Keisha. Keisha's father was a man named Robert, who was present for approximately 18 months, and then was not, in the particular way of some men in some situations, without drama or confrontation, or any of the explanations that might have made the absence easier to process. Patricia raised Keisha alone. She was working at a factory by then, the kind of work that Detroit had always organized itself around, and that Detroit was, in those years, beginning to lose. Hard work, physical work, the kind that wears on a body over years in ways that produce a particular tiredness that is different from the tiredness of other kinds of work. She was a good mother to Keisha in the ways that she could be. She was not always a good mother. Keisha grew up knowing she was loved, and also knowing, in the way that children know things without words, that her mother's love had a quality of possessiveness to it, a need for Keisha's presence and loyalty that made the love sometimes feel like a weight. Keisha did not go to college, not because she was incapable. Keisha was intelligent in the practical, interpersonal way that does not always translate into academic credentials, but that is genuinely valuable. But because the idea of college, in their house, in the world Patricia had built around herself and Keisha, carried connotations that made it feel like a departure rather than an advancement. And departures, in Patricia's world, were losses. Simone was born in 1999. Keisha was 19. The father was not in the picture in any sustained way. And Keisha, who was herself not fully formed as a person, and who had the particular challenges of a young mother without resources, did what people in that situation sometimes do. She sent Simone to live with her grandmother, with me. Simone came to me at 2 years old. She stayed until she was 5, and then went back to Keisha's house, and then came back to me at 8, when things got difficult again, and stayed until she was 15, when Patricia, who had never approved of the arrangement, who had always seen Simone's time with me as something I was taking, rather than something I was providing, insisted she come home. Simone went home. She was 15 years old, and she went home to a house that was Patricia and Keisha's house. In a way it was not entirely hers, and she navigated that with the particular grace of a young woman who has learned to find stable ground in unstable circumstances. She also kept studying. That was the thing about Simone that Patricia had never quite understood, and that I want you to understand because it is the center of everything. Simone was extraordinary, not in the way of prodigies, not with the dramatic, visible, announced quality of genius that attracts attention and produces the social validation that makes parents proud at parties, but in the deep, consistent, patient way of someone who is genuinely and profoundly intelligent, and who expresses that intelligence through the sustained application of it to things that matter. She read everything. She understood things at the first encounter, not just the surface of them, but the structure, the implications, the relationship between the specific thing and the larger system it was part of. She asked questions that went to the center of things. Her teachers noticed. Her teachers had been noticing since the 2nd grade. They sent notes home. They called. They requested meetings. Patricia attended some of these meetings with the expression of a woman who is being told something that makes her uncomfortable, and who is trying to determine whether the discomfort is about the information or the source of it. It was about the information. Because the information, your daughter is extraordinary. Your daughter is capable of things that are not yet visible in her current environment. Your daughter should be in programs and schools and situations that match what she is. The information communicated a departure. And departures in Patricia's world were losses. Simone understood this. She had grown up inside Patricia's world, had spent enough years in that house to understand the particular texture of her grandmother's fear and the specific ways it expressed itself. She also understood that understanding it did not mean accepting it. She applied to MIT in November of her senior year. She did not tell Patricia. She told me. I helped her with the application, not with the writing of it, which was entirely hers, and which was, I thought reading it, among the most honest and specific pieces of writing I had ever encountered from an 18-year-old, but with the logistics, the forms, the financial aid documentation, the particular bureaucracy of a significant application that required adult assistance to navigate, and that Simone, who was 17 when she started the process, needed help navigating. We worked on it together on Sunday afternoons at my kitchen table. Patricia did not know. The letter arrived in February. I was there when Simone opened it. I held her while she cried, and in March, Patricia found it and tore it. I need to tell you about the tearing. Not the physical act, that is simple enough. Patricia found the letter in Simone's room, in the folder where Simone kept her important papers, and she removed it, and she tore it in front of Simone in the kitchen of the house on Clement Street in Detroit on a Tuesday evening in March. I need to tell you about what she said when she tore it. She said, "You think you're better than us." Those words. Not "you can't afford this," which would have been inaccurate but understandable. Not "I'm afraid of losing you," which would have been honest. Not "I don't know how to support this because nobody in this family has ever done it," which would have been true. "You think you're better than us." As if Simone's intelligence were a form of contempt. As if the letter from MIT were not an achievement, but an accusation. As if the correct response to a child being extraordinary was to make sure she understood that being extraordinary was not permitted. Simone called me from outside the house, and I finished my shift, and I drove to Clement Street, and I stood on the sidewalk outside the house where my daughter lived, and I looked at my granddaughter, and I said the things that needed to be said. The letter is paper. The acceptance is real. You are going. And then I went inside. And I had the conversation with Patricia that I had been building toward, without fully knowing it, for 20 years. Patricia was in the kitchen when I came in. She was washing dishes, not looking at me, not because she was unaware I was there, but because she was Patricia, and Patricia managed difficult things by not looking at them until she was ready. I sat at the kitchen table. I waited. She finished the dishes. She dried her hands. She sat across from me. We looked at each other. I said, "Simone is going to MIT." Patricia said, "She can't afford." "There's a scholarship," I said. "A full one. I've been helping her apply for the last 3 months. Room, board, tuition, everything." Patricia was quiet. She looked at her hands. "You knew," she said, "about the application." "I helped her," I said, "and you didn't tell me. Would you have let her apply?" I asked. She didn't answer. That was the answer. I sat with it for a moment. Then I said, "Patricia, I need to tell you something that I should have said a long time ago." She looked up. "Simone is extraordinary," I said. "Not as a reflection on you or on Keisha or on anyone else in this family. She is simply extraordinary. The way some people are. The way Walter was, in his way. The way you were, before you decided that other people's achievements were something to be afraid of." Patricia's jaw tightened. "I am not afraid," she said. "You tore your granddaughter's MIT acceptance letter," I said. "If that's not fear, tell me what it is." She said nothing. I looked at her. I said, "You are not going to be the reason Simone doesn't go. I will not allow that. I am telling you this not as a threat. I don't have anything to threaten you with. I'm telling you as her grandmother. She is going, with or without your blessing. But I would like her to have your blessing." Patricia looked at the table, for a long time. Then she said something I had not expected. She said, What if she goes and doesn't come back? And in that question, in the specific fear that the question contained, I finally understood. Not the anger, not the tearing, not the 20 years of making excellence feel like betrayal. The fear underneath all of it. What if she goes and doesn't come back? I sat with that for a moment. Then I said, Patricia, the only thing that will make her not come back is making her feel that coming back costs her something she can't afford to lose. She looked at me. Let her go, I said. Without conditions, without making her choose. And she will come back, because she loves you. Not because you tore her letter. Despite it. Patricia was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, Detroit was doing what Detroit does in March. Gray and persistent, and not yet willing to become spring. Then Patricia said, I don't know how to be proud of something I don't understand. I know, I said. MIT is... She stopped. It's not our world. I know, I said. But it's her world. And she came from our world. And she's going to carry both of them. Another long silence. Then Patricia stood up. She went to the drawer beside the refrigerator where she kept tape and scissors and the small, useful things of a household. She came back with tape. She sat back down. She picked up the two halves of the torn letter, and she taped them together. Not perfectly. The tape was visible, and the tear was visible, and the letter looked like what it was. Something that had been damaged and then repaired, imperfectly, by someone who understood, too late, that the damage had been a mistake. She slid it across the table. I looked at it. Then I looked at her. Go get her, Patricia said. She's outside. I went outside. I brought Simone in, and Patricia handed her granddaughter the taped letter. I'm sorry, she said. Simone looked at the letter. Then she looked at her grandmother, and she did something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She sat down beside Patricia at the kitchen table, and she said, Tell me why you're scared. And Patricia told her. And Simone listened. And the conversation that happened in that kitchen in Detroit on a Tuesday evening in March was not the end of something. It was the beginning. Simone went to MIT in September. She went with the full scholarship that we had spent 3 months applying for, and that had come through in April, 2 weeks after the taped letter conversation in Patricia's kitchen. She went with a used laptop I bought her and 3 suitcases, and the particular combination of readiness and terror that 18-year-olds carry when they are going somewhere that is genuinely new. Patricia came to the airport. She did not say much, but she came. And when Simone hugged her goodbye, a long hug, the kind that carries everything that hasn't been said, and some things that have, Patricia held on. That mattered. Simone graduated in 4 years with a degree in computer science and a job offer from a software company in Silicon Valley that was, by any measure, extraordinary. She called me when she got the offer. Grandma, she said, I got it. I know, I said. Tell me everything. She told me everything. I listened. And when she was done, I said, Your grandfather would have been speechless, in the best possible way. She laughed. And then she said, Grandma, how do I tell Mama? Tell her the same way you told me, I said. Everything. Don't manage it. Don't soften it. Just tell her. She did. Patricia's response, which Simone relayed to me the following day, was not the response either of us had hoped for, and not the response that either of us had feared. It was somewhere in the complicated middle of things, which was where Patricia usually lived. She said, Silicon Valley is far. Simone said, I know. Patricia said, Will you come home? Simone said, Yes, for the important things. Patricia said, Christmas is important. Simone said, I know, Mama. And that was that. Not resolved, not healed, not the full accounting of everything that the torn letter had cost and everything that the taped letter had started, but real. The particular reality of 2 people who love each other and have a complicated history and are trying, imperfectly and without a map, to find their way to something more honest. I need to tell you about the 7 years. Simone went to Silicon Valley in 2022. She was extraordinary there, which surprised no one who had been paying attention. She was also, in the specific way of people who have come from difficult circumstances and have carried those circumstances with them into new ones, deeply aware of what her success meant in relation to the family she had come from. She called me every week. She called Patricia less frequently. The distance between them was not just geographic, but consistently. Holidays, birthdays, the occasional Sunday when she had time and the impulse arrived and she followed it. She sent money, not in a way that communicated anything beyond what it was. Support. The kind that a person who has the means provides to the people they love without making the provision of it a transaction. She sent it to me and to Keisha, not to Patricia, who had never asked and who would not have accepted. Keisha accepted. Keisha had Maya. Maya was Keisha's daughter, born in 2006, 18 years after Simone, in a different Detroit than the one Simone had grown up in. A Detroit that had been through the bankruptcy and the slow, uneven recovery and the particular mixture of devastation and renewal that characterized the city in those years. Maya was, and I want to say this carefully because the comparison matters and is also not the point, not Simone. She was not extraordinary in the way that Simone was extraordinary. She was not going to MIT. She was not going to Silicon Valley. She was a good student, a kind person, a young woman with a genuine desire to make something of herself that was expressed in the specific, ordinary, entirely valid way of someone who wants a better life than the one she grew up in and is willing to work for it. She wanted to go to college, a state school, not MIT, not anywhere that required a letter of extraordinary achievement, just a university. A degree in social work, because Maya had grown up watching what the absence of social support did to the people around her, and had decided, with the particular clarity of a young person who has identified a problem and wants to address it, that she wanted to be part of the addressing. She was accepted to Michigan State. The tuition was not impossible, but Keisha could not pay it, and Patricia could not pay it. And the gap between the financial aid Maya received and the cost of attending was, for a family without savings and without the particular economic infrastructure that makes college financing manageable, the difference between going and not going. Keisha called Simone. I was at my kitchen table when Simone called me about the call from Keisha. She had just gotten off the phone with her cousin. She was, I could hear in her voice, sitting with something that required some sitting before it produced words. "Grandma," she said. "Tell me," I said. Keisha called, she said. "About Maya." I waited. "Maya got into Michigan State," she said. "Social work." "That's good," I said. "Keisha can't pay for it," Simone said. "I know," I said. "She's asking me to help." "I know," I said again. A pause. "Grandma," she said. "Patricia tore my letter." "I know," I said. "Not Keisha," she said. "Keisha didn't do anything. But Patricia." "I understand," I said. She was quiet. "What do I do?" she asked. I thought about it. I thought about a Tuesday evening in March 7 years ago, and a kitchen in Detroit, and a taped letter and a grandmother who sat down beside a terrified woman and asked her to tell her why she was scared. I thought about what Simone had done that evening, and I thought about what it had cost her, and what it had produced. "Simone," I said, "what do you want to do?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I want Maya to go." "Yes," I said. "But I want Mama to know why," she said. "I don't want to just send money. I want her to understand." I sat with that. "How do you want her to understand?" I asked. Simone was quiet. Then she said, "I want to go home." "Go home," I said, "and tell her in person." "Yes," I said. "Go home and tell her in person." She booked the flight that evening. Simone came home on a Saturday in June. She had not been back to Detroit in 8 months, the longest gap since she had left for MIT 7 years earlier. She came with one bag, and the particular energy of someone who has been preparing for a conversation and is ready for it. I picked her up from the airport. We drove to Patricia's house. All 3 of us were going to be there: Simone, me, and Keisha, who had arranged to have Maya out of the house for the afternoon because Simone had asked that the conversation happen without Maya present. Not to exclude Maya, to protect her from the specific weight of what needed to be said between the adults before anything could be decided. Patricia opened the door. She looked at Simone. Simone looked at her. 7 years is a long time. Long enough to see, in the specific way that time reveals things, what the years have produced in a person. Simone at 25 was not Simone at 18. She was more settled, more certain, carrying herself with the particular ease of someone who has found where she belongs in the world and has built something real there. Patricia was 58. She was, I will say this honestly because it matters, smaller than she had been. Not in her personality, which remained large in the way it had always been, but physically, and in the particular way that life can be visible in a body. She looked like someone who had been carrying something heavy for a long time. "Come in," she said. We came in. We sat at the kitchen table. The same kitchen table. Simone looked at it. I know she was thinking about the last time she had sat at this table, 7 years ago. The taped letter between them. Keisha said nothing. She had the expression of a woman who has asked for something she is not sure she had the right to ask for, and who is waiting to find out what asking it is going to cost. Simone said, "I want to talk about Maya." Patricia said, "I know." Simone said, "She got into Michigan State." Patricia said, "I know." Simone said, "Keisha can't pay for it." Patricia said, "I know that too." A silence. Simone said, "I want to pay for it. I want Maya to go." Patricia looked at her. Simone held her gaze. "I want to pay for it," Simone said again. "All of it. Tuition, room, board, everything." For 4 years, Keisha's eyes were wet. Patricia's expression was difficult to read. The particular complexity of someone receiving something they wanted and did not expect to receive, and who is not certain what receiving it requires of them. "Why?" Patricia said. Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because someone paid for me. Not with money, but with time, and belief, and the particular stubbornness of not accepting that a letter is the same as the acceptance." She looked at me briefly, then back at Patricia. "And because Maya deserves to go," she said. "Not because of me, not because of what happened 7 years ago, but because she is Keisha's daughter, and she has worked for this, and she wants to do something real with it. And that deserves to be supported." Patricia looked at the table. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I'm going to say something." Simone waited. Patricia said, "I was wrong. 7 years ago. The letter." She stopped. "I was wrong, and I have known it every day since, and I have not said it clearly, and I should have." The kitchen was very quiet. "I was afraid," Patricia said. "That's the true thing. I was afraid you would go and become something I couldn't reach anymore. And I didn't know how to say that. So I tore the letter instead." Simone nodded. "I know," she said. "You told me that night, when I asked." Patricia looked at her. "You remembered," she said. "Everything," Simone said. Another silence. Then Patricia said, "What do you need from me?" "For Maya." Simone said, "I need you to tell her that going is the right thing, that it's not a departure, that she can go and still be ours." Patricia looked at her granddaughter, the one she had tried to keep, and the one she had almost succeeded in keeping, and who had gone anyway, with a taped letter and a scholarship, and the particular stubbornness of someone who had learned, from the people around her, that love and letting go were not opposites. "I'll tell her," Patricia said. Simone nodded. And Keisha, who had been silent through all of it, said, "Thank you." She was not talking to Simone. She was talking to her mother. Patricia looked at her daughter. "Thank me when she graduates," she said. And it was the most Patricia thing anyone had ever said, and we all knew it. And the kitchen held something that it had not held in a very long time, something close to ease. Simone called Maya that evening. She told her she was paying for Michigan State. Maya's response, which Simone described to me the following morning with the particular precision of someone who wants to make sure the description does justice to the thing described, was a sound that was not quite words and not quite crying, but was both of those things simultaneously. Then Maya said, "Why?" Simone said, "Because someone believed in me when it was hard to, and this is what you do with that." Maya said, "I don't know how to." "You don't have to," Simone said. "You just have to go and do the work and come home for Christmas. Maya laughed through what was still mostly crying. Deal, she said. Maya started at Michigan State in September. Simone came home for the send-off. Not dramatically. She flew in on a Friday, spent the weekend, flew back on Monday, but present. In the house on Clement Street, with Patricia and Keisha and Maya in the particular organized chaos of a family sending someone to college for the first time, which involves a great many opinions about what to pack, and a great many trips to Target, and a great many moments in which the weight of what is happening is briefly visible beneath the ordinary activity of preparing for it. Simone and Patricia were in the kitchen together on Sunday evening, after dinner, doing the dishes the way I used to do dishes with Simone at my house. Her washing, Patricia drying, in the easy rhythm of two people who have spent time in the same kitchen and know how to move within it without instruction. I was at the table. I watched them. At one point, Patricia said, "She's going to be fine." Simone said, "I know." Patricia said, "She's got your..." She stopped. "She's got the family in her. The thing that makes you keep going." Simone looked at her. "You've got that too," Simone said. "You just don't always use it the same way." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "No, I don't." She dried a bowl. She handed it to Simone to put away. Simone knew where it went. She had spent enough time in this kitchen, at various points in her childhood, to know the geography of it. She put the bowl where it belonged, and they finished the dishes in the particular comfortable silence of two people who have said the important things and are resting in the space after them. Patricia called me the week after Maya started at Michigan State. She called on a Sunday morning, which was new. "Dorothy," she said when I answered. "Patricia," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "I want to ask you something," she said. "Ask it," I said. "Did you know," she said, "when you helped Simone with the MIT application, did you know what was going to happen? That she was going to come back. That she was going to help Maya." I thought about the honest answer. "No," I said. "I didn't know any of that." "Then why?" she asked. "Why did you help her? Why did you fight for her to go?" I thought about Simone at the mailbox in February, about the good crying, about Walter and what he would have said. "Because she deserved to go," I said. "That's the only reason that matters." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm going to try to think that way, about what people deserve, instead of what I'm afraid of. That would be good," I said. She was quiet again. Then, "Dorothy, thank you for..." She stopped, "for not giving up on her. When I made it hard." I looked out the window of my kitchen at the Detroit morning. "She was never mine to give up on," I said. "She was always going to be who she is. I just made sure the door stayed open." Patricia said, "I should have been the one keeping it open." "Yes," I said. "But you taped the letter. That mattered too." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I had never heard her say in 40 years of being her mother. "I'm trying," she said, "to be better at this." "I know," I said. "I can hear it." And I meant it. Maya's first semester at Michigan State ended in December. She came home for Christmas with a 3.7 GPA, and the particular energy of someone who has discovered that they are capable of things they did not know they were capable of, and who is still in the process of integrating that discovery. We had Christmas at my house, all of us. Patricia, which was unusual. Patricia and I had not spent Christmas together in 12 years, the particular distance of two women whose relationship has been complicated by the daughter between them. She came. She brought food, the specific dishes that she made, and that Simone and Keisha had grown up with, and that carried, in the eating of them, the particular weight of everything those years contained. Simone came from California. She sat beside Patricia at the Christmas table. And Patricia, who had spent 60 years communicating her feelings through everything except direct statement, picked up her glass and looked at her granddaughter across the table and said, "I'm proud of you." Not to Simone, to Maya. Maya looked at her great-grandmother. "Grandma Pat," she said, "that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." Patricia said, "Don't get used to it." And everyone laughed, the real kind. Simone called me after Christmas from the airport. She was flying back to California. "Grandma?" she said. "Yes," I said. "Thank you," she said, "for making me go. 7 years ago, when it would have been easier to stay, I thought about the Tuesday evening in March, about standing outside Patricia's house on the sidewalk and looking at my granddaughter and saying the letter is paper and the acceptance is real. I didn't make you go," I said. "I just told you the truth about what you had." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Maya told me something last night." "What?" I said. "She said she wants to come to California when she graduates. She said she wants to work in child welfare policy. She said she wants to fix the systems that didn't work for our family." I sat with that. "She's going to," I said. Simone said, "I know." "How do you know?" I asked. "Because," Simone said, "she asked the right questions, the same ones I used to ask." I smiled. Then she said, "Grandma?" "Yes." "What did you think when Patricia tore the letter?" I thought about it honestly. I thought I said that the letter was paper, and that what the letter represented was not. She was quiet. "And I thought," I said, "that some things that get torn can be taped, and some things that get taped eventually hold." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Is that what happened? With you and Mama?" I looked out the window of my kitchen at the January morning. "Something is holding," I said. "I wouldn't call it taped yet, but something is holding." Simone said, "That's enough." "Yes," I said. "For now, it's enough." She boarded her flight. And I sat at my kitchen table in Detroit in January with my coffee and the particular quiet of a house that has held a Christmas and is now holding its aftermath. And I thought about letters and what they contain and what they don't contain, and the difference between the paper and the thing the paper represents. And I thought about Maya at Michigan State, about Simone in California, about Patricia saying "I'm proud of you" across a Christmas table, about taped letters and open doors, and the particular stubbornness of women who have decided that a thing is going to happen. And I finished my coffee, and I made another cup, and I stayed at the table for a while longer, because the morning was quiet, and the coffee was good, and I had, for the first time in a long time, nothing that needed to be done immediately. And that, I thought, was its own kind of victory. There is something I want to tell you about the people who tear things. Not the things themselves, the letters, the documents, the physical evidence of achievement that can be damaged and repaired and damaged again, but the people. The people who tear things are almost never doing it because they want to cause harm. They are doing it because they are afraid. Afraid of what the thing represents. Afraid of what its existence means for the world they have built around themselves. Afraid of the departure it implies. Afraid, most fundamentally, of being left behind by someone they love who is capable of going somewhere they cannot follow. That fear is real. It is not an excuse, but it is real. And understanding that it is real, understanding that Patricia tore Simone's letter not because she hated her granddaughter, but because she loved her in the complicated, fearful, possessive way of someone who has never learned to love without holding on. That understanding was what made it possible for Simone to sit beside her grandmother on a Tuesday evening and ask the question that changed everything. "Tell me why you're scared." Not what you did. Why you're scared. And Patricia told her. And everything that followed. The taped letter, the scholarship, the 7 years, the phone call from Keisha, the flight home, the payment for Michigan State, the Christmas with the 3.7 GPA, and the "I'm proud of you" across the table. All of it followed from that one question asked by an 18-year-old who had every reason to walk away and who chose instead to stay long enough to understand. I want to tell you this because I think it matters beyond this particular story. The people in your life who have torn things, who have damaged, deliberately or from fear, the evidence of who you are and what you have built. They are not simply obstacles. They are people. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they are people who are capable of change if someone is willing to ask the right question at the right moment. Sometimes the right question is, "Tell me why you're scared." Sometimes the answer is the beginning of something. Not always. Not in every situation. There are people and situations that require distance rather than questions, that require the protection of yourself rather than the understanding of someone else. But sometimes, and the wisdom is in knowing which situation you are in. Simone knew, and she asked, and Patricia told her, and Maya went to Michigan State. And something that had been torn for 7 years is, slowly and imperfectly, and with all the texture of things that heal rather than disappear, beginning to hold. I want to ask you one last thing before we finish. Is there someone in your life who tore something, who damaged from fear, something that mattered to you? And have you asked them why? Not to excuse what they did, but to understand it. And if you haven't, what would it mean to ask? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story found something in you, if it reached the person who has been holding a torn letter, or the person who did the tearing, or the person who is trying to figure out if something can be taped, please like this video and subscribe to Still Waters. New stories arrive here regularly, stories about the things that get torn and the things that hold, and the questions that make the difference between the two. Those are the stories worth telling. And before you go, where are you watching from right now? What time is it there? Still waters run deep. Thank you for sitting with me in them.